think this is the first time that I've done this, recorded a video and spoken directly to Professor Richard Dawkins. But this quote came my way, and I thought it really deserves a response. Professor Dawkins has alleged that, quote, nice Christians, nice Muslims might actually be making the world, quote, safe for extremists. So on the one hand, Professor Dawkins said it's very important that we should not demonize ordinary law-abiding, very decent Muslims, which of course is the vast majority in this country. But he says if you have these moderates, be it Christians or Muslims, here he's specifically speaking about Muslims, but if you have these moderates, that would give the false impression, quote, that there's something good about religion. And therefore it would be worthy to bring up children with theological ideas, which then prepares the way for these extremists. Quote, they're entitled simply to say, oh, that's my faith, I believe it, you're not allowed to question it, and you're not allowed to ask me why I hold it. And he said, once you teach people that that's a legitimate reason for believing something, then you, as it were, give a license to the extremists who say, my belief is that I'm supposed to be a suicide bomber, I'm supposed to blow up buildings, it's my faith, and you can't question that. So let me just make sure I have this right. I have a friend in India, Yesu Padam, and Yesu Padam is a man who was an untouchable, and he, at the age of 11, in hostility towards the system and hatred of the system, Yesu Padam became a Naxalite, a violent communist, and an atheist. So he rejected his father's Christianity. He rejected the Hinduism of his nation. He became an atheist. He became a violent man engaged in basically acts of terror against the rich. He became alcoholic atheist, and in his mid-20s had a vision of Jesus, was completely radically changed. He's now in his early 60s. He has built hospitals. He has orphanages, children's homes. They have taken many poor children with no possibility of meals, of education, of housing, and have raised them in the orphanages. Some of these kids now are doctors in America. Some of them are pastors in India. Some of them are nurses in India. So I just want to get this straight. So that now prepares the way for terrorism? Is that right? That prepares the way for terrorism? That by him turning from terrorist activities as an alcoholic, atheist, Maoist communist in India, that now opens the door for someone to be a suicide bomber? So by him turning from violence to compassionate help, they have homes for the elderly. They have training centers for handicapped to teach them a trade so that they can make a living and have self-respect in India. I've been there 21 straight years and seen the extraordinary work he's done when he turned 60. Government leaders came in from different parts of India to commend him for his work. So by doing that, that now gives place to religious beliefs, which leads someone to be a suicide bomber. Is that right? Or here, take a much more minor example of my own life. I'm 16 years old, irreligious, raised in a Jewish home, but irreligious, shooting heroin, so despicable in my lifestyle, I stole money from my own father, violent, angry tongue, giving myself to all types of carnality. Hey, after all, you only got one life to live. Just live it and enjoy it to the full. Part of the counterculture revolution of the 60s that threw off a lot of religious tradition, religious sanctions and boundaries. And what happened? I got radically born again. My life radically, dramatically changed. Now I lead a ministry school, and we've sent workers out around the world. Some of them are helping the poorest of the poor. For example, our team in the Philippines, they fight human trafficking. They feed the poor. They care for orphans. They're strongly pro-life as well. They're helping with education. So that basically is now going to encourage someone to strap a vest on themselves and blow themselves up and be a suicide bomber. Sir, with all respect to your great intellect and your scientific knowledge and your professorial career, no one downplays that or denies that. I must say, though, what you're saying is utterly irrational. Utterly irrational. And simply the idea that there is no God and advocating that, you, sir, know the violence that's been done by atheists. You know the atrocities that have been committed by atheists. And the argument could be that if you raise someone saying there is no God and there is no judge and there is no one to whom you'll give account one day, that leads to all types of atrocities and horrific crimes. And I am sure you could find far more violent people who were undermining social life, people who were guilty of destructive acts, who came to a living faith. I'll speak as a follower of Jesus, who came to a living faith in God through Jesus, who are no longer doing those things. Then you could find people who were irreligious and now became followers of Jesus, who are engaging in terrorist acts. Sir, your comments were utterly irrational and really show, more than anything, a hatred of the truth of God. I'm an academic person myself. I do not endorse irrationality. I do not endorse an anti-intellectual stand. I love God with all my heart and mind and soul and strength. And because of that, all the more, out of love for God and his love in my life, do I love my neighbor, not as a religious act, but from the heart. So please, sir, tell me how a religion that teaches as its two highest priorities, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, how that opens the door to someone becoming a terrorist suicide bomber. Sir, your position is intellectually bankrupt, I'm sorry to say.